Welcome to Fresh Catholic, a podcast for those who are converting, reverting, or simply want a fresh perspective of the Catholic faith to help them to open their hearts and minds to become closer to the love and goodness of Christ. My daily prayer is that I will be a bright light to others, to be filled with the love and light of Christ, so that when people look at me, they see Him radiating out from me for His glory. Hello and welcome. I'm Lori Balderas, and I'm so happy you're here. Well, hello everybody. How's your Easter season going? Do you have a new bright attitude? Do you have a spring in your step? Do you want some inspiration for feeling grateful? Well, check out my Fresh Catholic 50 Days of Gratitude on my social media at Fresh Catholic. And also please follow me there and on Facebook and let your friends know. I just think that springtime and right after, we've gone through Lent and we're in the Easter season, I think it's just such a nice time to be grateful. And sometimes people, take things for granted. So I think it's sometimes good to hear what other people are grateful for, and it might trigger something in your own brain. Maybe do a little, notebook that tells all the things you're grateful for. I don't know. It's just something to think about. And of course, before you go to sleep, thank God for all the gifts He's given you for the day, and just go off and slumber in gratitude to the Lord. Please help support the Fresh Catholic ministry. We really need your help, everybody. We're on a mission to draw people to Christ and back to the church, and to keep this podcast going. If you want it to keep going, please help us. We need some financial assistance with production costs and equipment. We need to purchase some equipment to take this to the next level. So please support in any way you can. There's different ways, like you could become a Patreon, and you just go to my website, freshcatholic.com, bottom left corner, you'll see a Patreon tab. Please click on it and support. There's all different levels of ways you can support, and that money would go directly to Fresh Catholic to help us purchase our equipment. I could also advertise for you on my podcast. I'm in 46 countries, and also I have a lot of very local listeners. So if you have a local business, get on here and let me advertise for you. If you would like to simply be a sponsor and you just say, hey, Lori, here's some money for your podcast, go out and buy that equipment. Boy, that would be a miracle in itself. You can also shop at our online store at freshcatholic.com. There's all kinds of things there. There's aprons, there's t-shirts, there's mugs, cups, notebooks. There's all kinds of stuff that Simon designed himself. They're all faith-based. So please go check that out. And while you're at it, you could order Fresh Catholic coffee. 17 flavors, roasted and shipped the same day. What an amazing thing. Also, please listen, rate, review, and share my weekly podcast and Fresh Catholic Daily, which is the daily readings. So thank you in advance. Now, I would like to tell you who I have as a guest today. This is very exciting. We have a return guest, and that is my friend Sabrina McManigal. She's back, everybody. And just to remind you, if you go back and listen to episode 57, she was a guest of mine a few weeks, months ago, and she was telling us her backstory, and she was in the RCIA program, and so please go back and listen, because now we have a new, fresh Catholic. She just got initiated into the Catholic Church at the Easter Vigil, and so I, of course, wanted to get her back so we can hear what her experience was with that. So all that being said, here is my guest, my beautiful friend, Sabrina.
Hello.
Hello, Sabrina. You're back.
I'm back.
You're back and you're glowing. You must have the Lord in you.
I do.
Literally.
Right.
You do. Oh, my goodness. Well, I couldn't be happier for you.
Thank you.
I was so happy to be there. When you officially became Catholic, I was seated at the Easter Vigil, cheering you on, taking photos. I felt like a proud mother. Even though I'm not old enough to be your mother, I don't think so. But I felt like a proud mother. I just was bursting with joy for you. You were bursting with joy. I just want to tell you, I have not been to the Easter Vigil since I became Catholic 10 years ago. And you and I were just talking prior to this, and I was saying yesterday was my 10-year anniversary of being Catholic. I know it's a beautiful experience. I'm anxious to talk to you about it, but I just wanted to say that I am so happy for you and all the people that I got to witness that. But I haven't been since I became Catholic, and I just want you to know that I really wanted to come and support you and experience that with you because I was just so overjoyed for you.
I was just overjoyed that you were there.
Oh, good. I was so happy to be there. As I was sitting there experiencing it with you, I was very present in the moment. But I remember when I became Catholic, it's kind of like a wedding day. It's kind of like, there's this big buildup. It's this big life-changing event. There's a lot of people there. There's a lot going on, and it's almost a blur.
It's funny you mentioned the wedding day because that's exactly how I felt. Like I was trying to find a certain white, and I wanted, certain clothes and something specific. It was just important to me what I was wearing because I am marrying the church and coming into my faith and making the commitment.
Right.
I just remember just being a little bit flustered. I just wanted everything to be perfect.
Right.
And it wasn't. I did not, nothing was going right that day. But it was fine. And I knew he doesn't care what you're wearing. This is,
You looked fantastic.
Thank you. But when I was arriving to the church, I looked up in the sky. I was at a stop and I looked up and I just had this overwhelming feeling of just serenity and calm and love just kind of sitting through my body. It's like I felt like I just had a massage. Like I was totally relaxed, so happy, not worried anymore. And just the whole evening, I was just like a wide-eyed, and trying to soak it all in. There's a beautiful Mother Mary.
That stained glass.
Yes. And so I was staring at that, and like my whole body moved forward. And I was looking at you to the left of me, and I just felt so safe and was surrounded by people who love and accept you and are in the same belief, obviously, but the same place that you are in life, especially at that very moment.
Right. You're all in the same mindset. You all are having the same goal of this thing you're taking on that's so amazing and wonderful. But I kind of had the same thing. There was all this buildup, and then I remember we went in to a room and we were all had that like quiet time, and it was just, I felt like I always equate that to being underwater, when you're underwater and it's really quiet.
Right.
And so I remember having this prayer time before we went into the Easter Vigil, and I just felt the same way. I just felt like this warm blanket feeling, just this comfort, calm. I wasn't worried. I wasn't anxious. I was just like ready.
Yes,
I was ready.
Same thing. I couldn't wait to get up there and receive my blessing and the holy oil across the forehead. Oh my gosh, I couldn't wait to get up there. And when they ask your saint, for me, it was Mother Mary. It's not like a graduation because now the real work begins, really.
Right.
But it was just a finality of I am coming home, and it's been sanctified now, and I can take sacrament, and that's amazing. And also, not to move around too much, but back up a little bit. I think a week before the Easter Vigil, we did our first confession. And that was so powerful.
It's very powerful.
And I think I stated in the last podcast, I do work a program of recovery in which I do these steps. And in these steps, I have to be accountable. And if I was wrong, I have to make an amends and things like that. So I'm I'm privy to this kind of thing naturally because I work a pretty solid program, meaning I'm doing these things all of the time. But this was on a different level because everything is being wiped away.
Right.
So it was Father Leon. I think I was the last person. I thought, oh gosh, he might be just exhausted, with all these people. And I didn't know what I don't know where do I start? I said, oh, bless his heart. He's so sweet. And I don't even remember what he said, but I blurted some things out and he suggested what he did. And afterwards he gave me a hug.
Oh, that's so nice. Oh, Father Leon. That's
so
nice.
He's wonderful. Sorry, that was loud. So I don't know. You just change from that alone. I feel like my whole DNA is different now.
Right. And
is different.
I wanted to say, because, let's put a pin in that where you're saying how everything's changed, because that's very true. But I was thinking when you were saying it's not like a graduation, because when you're graduating from something, you're finished with it and you're moving forward. And yes, you're going to go get a job, but you're finished with the part, and that's why you're graduating. I equate this again more to a marriage, because when you become Catholic, you have this big prep. You have all these things you're doing to get to this point, but that's just the beginning.
Yeah.
Then there's the everyday, all day, life-changing experience you've just done that now you're going to live it.
Yes.
Okay. So I think that's a better way to
yes, it's kind of like
it.
When I was pregnant with my twins, I read What to Expect When You're Expecting. Every month, I would read that section for what's happening at this month. And I wouldn't move forward in the book. I would stay right there, but I was always preparing. But then once you have those children, it's a lifelong,
right,
forever. So.
Right. I totally agree and totally know that feeling of you've been preparing for this, you become Catholic, you go to confession, which is very interesting because I had never been to confession before. I'm sure you've never been to confession before. And you kind of have to clean up your whole life. You have to spill it all out there.
You can't leave anything
and out. You can't leave anything out. And it is just this incredible burden being taken off your shoulders, because there were things that I confessed to that some people knew of. And then there were the things nobody's known of ever. Yes. And so when I went in and confessed those things, and you have that weight lifted off of you and it's taken away from you, it's not like, I'm going to forgive you, but then I'm going to beat you up about it later. It's like, how sometimes people say they're forgiving you, but then they still come at you and they haven't really forgiven you. Well, God isn't that way.
No.
God forgives you, and we're the ones that sometimes don't forgive ourselves.
Absolutely.
So that's a thing to work on.
Yeah.
Where I've done that, where I've gone to confession and I've confessed and I've been, set free. But then in my own mind, I'm not letting myself off the hook for it. And you have to learn to do that. But it is that first time confession, you walk out like 10 pounds lighter for sure.
Absolutely. And I have been reading a lot about that. 7 Secrets to a Confession, something like that book. I got in the RCIA. And then also Father Ribbecker, who's a priest, a theologian, and an exorcist, talks about confession. And that's the very thing. You have no right to now start beating yourself up in your mind about it, because you can't afford to do that. And you've already given it to him.
Right.
So do not try to, you cannot. Why would you do that to your father?
Right.
Absolutely not.
Right. And that again is one of those things we struggle with, where we want to be in charge. We want to be the one that's accounting, no, I'm not going to let you rid me of this thing. It's a control thing, and you have to work on that. And then I do really know the feeling of everything changes and you feel so different. It's hard to explain to people, because I used to there's all these things I used to think is it going to feel different if I'm in a sacramental marriage? It does feel different. Is it going to feel different if I receive the Eucharist? It does feel different. It's interesting to me, because it's one of those things, until you experience it, it seems like people are making this up. And they're not, I think people don't understand when we're Catholic why we feel the way we do. It's because we actually have the Lord in our body. He becomes a part of our DNA. That's why we change.
Right. And now that when I was confirmed, I was given the gift of the Holy Spirit. And so I don't know, that is a hard thing to explain. I do have certain things I tell people if they ask me about it. It's sort of like promotion rather than attraction. So they can, hopefully folks can see me. For the most part, I am human, but I really feel like because I see everything so different, that my being and the way I'm responding and the way I'm doing things are different as well.
Right.
And I hope that's true. And like I said, I'm human. I'm a work in progress. I'm not perfect at all. But I know that I just don't look at things the same.
Right. It's true.
You couldn't have told me that. I would have said, that's nice for you to say. And maybe you believe that to be true for you, but it has happened. But if I didn't go through the RCIA and go through whatever in my life, I think all these things have brought me to where I am now.
Absolutely. And also God picks the time when we're ready, because there's times where people won't have this experience. If they're resistant in a way where they just don't want to give it the time, He has to soften our hearts. He has to soften our minds. He knows when He is going to reach out to us, like how you heard a voice. I say sometimes there's a hand reaching out. It's when and how He wants to pick His moment to make it be the most impactful. Nobody could have convinced me to do any of this stuff. I didn't want to be a Christian, and then God changed that in 1989, and then becoming Catholic. I mean, He just picked his moment where it was going to stick. It's hard to explain to people because it's true. It's like we're not putting on an act. It's not a phase. It's not something that we're just doing because it's trendy, which it's not. But you know what I mean?
That would be too tight.
It's none of those things.
Right. That would be sort of ridiculous, actually.
Right. But I think of the people that don't believe and the people who are against the Catholic Church, and they don't understand, why we feel the way we do. Well, they haven't experienced it like we have. And hopefully someday they will.
My family was supportive. I think I said there were certain people who weren't. Anybody who matters in my life has been supportive. I think a couple people of those core people have been like, well, why? That's all. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me why? But not to discourage, but, And so after explaining it, they're like, okay, they're happy.
Well, and I don't know if you've experienced this yet, but when I made the decision that I wanted to become Catholic, and same thing where people would find out and they would like, why do you want to do that? It's like, why wouldn't I? I mean, I never understand that attitude. I don't see what everybody has against it. I really don't. I can't even fathom it. It's kind of like I don't understand racism because I don't feel hate towards groups of people, so I can't even wrap my mind around it. So I feel the same way where it's like, why are people questioning it or trying to talk me out of it? I couldn't quite figure that out. And now, especially that I'm in it, and I've been in it now for 10 years, and I love it more and more. Like my love and my devotion is becoming stronger and stronger and bigger and bigger. It's not weakening. Whatever they thought was going to happen, that this was a phase I was in, that's not at all what it is. And I don't want to convince people. When you really take the Holy Spirit in, when you really start being fed by the Lord, you can't help but change. You can't help but change your attitude, change your mindset, even change your physicality. It's like there's so many things where I put my relationship with Him first. So if, my day goes like, if I do that, is that going to please the Lord? If I do that, is that going to be a benefit to the Lord? That's how I think. And we're all human. We all slip. We all fall. I'll do something where I'll get mad or I'll yell or I'll do something and I'll think, oh, Lori, now come on. Like, stop it. But I'm stopping it sooner. It's like, because it's not that I'm concerned about maybe what's going on in the world as much as God wouldn't want me to be doing that. And I stop it sooner. So I'm not perfect, and I still have that Italian temper. I'm so sorry to the people who have to be inflicted with that. But for the most part, I would say it's such a life-changing thing. It can't help but change you. If you go into it with a legitimate reason you want to be Catholic and you really have your heart and mind and soul open to it, you can't help for it to just feed you and for you to thrive. It's like watering a plant. It's like you have a plant that's sitting there dried up, shriveled up. Start adding water to it, it's going to start blooming and blossoming. And that's exactly, I feel like the world is walking around very parched in holiness, very parched in goodness. And if they would just give the Lord a chance, they're so rejective of him. If you would just break open your heart just a little bit, let him in there, you feel so much better and more fulfilled and more joyous and more at peace. And this has just been a reoccurring theme on this podcast this season, because as I'm becoming more and more deep in my faith and more in love with Christ, the world is almost becoming more and more parched and more lost. And I just keep thinking, you guys, the answer is Jesus. What you doing? I don't understand the resistance to it. It's like, I'm starving over here, but I don't want to eat. Please don't give me food. That's what it reminds me of.
I feel like only because this is what I used to do, it's so much easier to not. It's so much easier to sin or to just flail around in life with no accountability and no self-worth, no self-esteem, no goals, really, no real stride that's moving upwards, forwards. It's so much easier to sit in the yuck and not take any responsibility and be a victim and blah, blah, blah. It's so much easier. And I think that's a lot of why people are where they are. My work is my priority, or whatever it may be is my priority. And I don't have time for all that. This is work. And
yes.
it is not like going to some great looking building, which is some sort of Christian building of church with the tambourines and the guitar and, my hands are up, and then I leave. And that's all I do. This, being in the Catholic Church, to me, at least in my interpretation, seems to be a whole different scenario. And it's a whole change of everything and how I'm doing things and why I'm doing things. And I feel like my character, I've been working on that so earnestly recently since after Easter. Like, okay, like the Holy Ghost is like, now we're working on this.
Yeah.
And you're going to take some slashes, like the little, ting, ting. I'm taking some, it's painful.
Yeah, it's going to get, I don't mean to scare you, but it's going to get real wild, because now Satan's mad and he's like, oh man, we got another one here I got to deal with. And that's okay, because look at that as a compliment, because that means that you're on the path to holiness, and it's not going to be easy. Jesus has never claimed it's going to be easy. But in the long run, I really do agree with what you're saying about the world. It is easier to sin.
It's
like easier
to not do the footwork.
Yeah, it's just easier, and to not be accountable. That's why I personally think people turn away from the Catholic Church. If you notice, most people, not all, but most people leave in droves right around teenage time till about, say, 40, in that zone. That's when they all turn away, especially maybe teenage to 25, okay? If you think about that period of time, that's when most people want to be drinking, want to be doing drugs, want to be having premarital sex, want to be into pornography. They want to go out and do whatever they want and lead this crazy Sodom and Gomorrah life. And they certainly don't want to go to church, because that's the ultimate parent looking over you saying, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. So they break away. They blame it on the church, but it's actually them. They're the ones that are like, oh, well, I just don't want to, I don't want to put in the work. I don't want to be accountable. I want to go do whatever I want. But then there comes a point where what I gather from the people who were raised Catholic, turn away and come back, is typically they got those wild oats out, I guess, and then they realize, oh my gosh, I need to get my life in order here. It's like, I got to get down to business. And then I believe people like you and I, where we came to this faith later, which better late than never. And I just feel, again, that God knew when he wanted you and when he wanted me and when it would be the most impactful and when it would stick. And so I think he just is waiting for people to get their act together. Some people don't. Some people will never get their act together. They just want to lead their life without God in it. But then they become the victim. They're blaming other people for things in their life. Well, you have a choice. Your life is empty because you don't have the Lord in it.
Yeah. I mean, it's not for me to judge.
No, it's not for me to judge either.
I really can't. I even in the smallest sense, I can't do that because I've made a commitment in that confirmation to change like so many things about my core being, and judgment was none of my business.
Yeah.
And I can't do that. It's not for me. I'm not saying you're judging, but I'm saying for those folks that are like flailing right deep, it's not for me I can just lead by example.
Right. And that's what I was going to say is I feel more sad and I feel worried for them and sad for them. And I pray for them every single day because I say, please, Lord, please help them find you. Please, please, please. Because I'm worried about them. And so I don't judge them as much as I'm worried and want them for the scales to go away from their eyes and for them to open their heart to the Lord. But again, he's going to decide when that happens. And all I can do is pray that they will find their way to him or that they will be open to him because it just makes me sad for them. They're missing out. And hopefully someday they will find their way to him. Before I move on to the next thing I was going to talk about, is there anything else about the Easter Vigil you wanted to talk about?
It was amazing because we went in and the sanctuary was dark.
Mm-hmm.
The church was dark. And I loved that. And it was just the candles. So when they turned the lights on, and right after that, we started going up to them being baptized and me being confirmed, a few of us confirmed. So it was just a good parallel because you were walking in the darkness, but now you're walking in the light.
Right.
Yeah.
And also just another interesting little fact was it was pouring rain.
Trying to do the fire outside. None of us got to get near the fire pit because all the folks from the sanctuary. Yeah. So we were back here and everybody else was up here. We didn't even see it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
So we were just I was under someone's umbrella. Just like.
Well, it was, even so, everybody was very excited and happy. So you were going to tell me about some gifts you received at the Easter Vigil. What did you want to say about that?
Well, the Holy Spirit, the gift of the Holy Spirit. It's so hard to explain. When they put the oil on, I just felt like I'm home and this is my Father. And then he's just so happy. And I guess I didn't feel worthy in my life, but that night I did feel worthy. So when I received the confirmation, it was a confirmation for me too that I am worthy and that I am his daughter. And he loves me. And my sense of self is just different. It's just, I sort of look at certain things and think, no, that's not appropriate for you. Whereas before it was like, oh, well, it's fine. But now I'm not saying I'm better than, but maybe it's not good enough. Maybe it's not the level that I deserve. I hope that doesn't sound pretentious. I'm not saying I'm just saying it's like a china figurine. Like you're not going to toss it around and shove it in a drawer. She needs to be taken care of. So it needs to be protected and taken care of. It's like a child. You would never neglect the child. Oh, at least you and I.
Right.
You would never, ever do anything to hurt the child. And I want to just be right there, protect you, let me read, let's learn. So I would never treat myself the way I've allowed myself to be treated ever again.
Well, because I believe that when we have God just completely in our every fiber of our being, we realize how that's like real love. He loves us, and it's true, and it's unconditional, and you can't help but feel it because he is love.
Yes, that's
and it's so powerful.
Yeah, that's it, 100%.
I don't know about you, but I have a lot of trust issues with people, and people will tell me something, but I don't necessarily believe it. But because I've been let down so many times and been slammed around and hurt so many times, but God isn't doing that with me. So I feel so safe and secure that he truly loves me, that he isn't going to let me down, that he, even though things might seem like they're going in a bad direction, it's either to strengthen us or to teach us a lesson, or it's just the way it is to mold what the next phase is going to be. And he's literally the only one I trust, because he just doesn't have an agenda. He's just pure love.
That's exactly true. And I concur.
There are trustworthy people out there. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that humans are humans. So they're just like you and I. We're going to fail people. We're going to hurt people. We're going to upset people. It's just that happens because we're human. And sometimes it's purposeful, and sometimes it's, the person is taking something wrong. But that's not how God works. So it's just that safe anchor, that safe foundation, to have him as the foundation. And then, I've said in past episodes, that's who I'm going to now. I used to go to humans when I would have a problem or a question or need guidance, or more about that, like guidance and everything. I don't do that anymore. I just pray. I just go to him and please help me. Please show me what I need to do. Please, Blessed Mother, pray to your son for me. Please lift up my prayers to him. That's where I get my guidance.
Absolutely.
Because he's there to protect us, take care of us, guide us. We have to just follow what he wants us to do. So, and again, you have to really feel it. And until you really feel it, it's just hard to explain, because it sounds like we're kind of making it up, and it's just, we're not. And so that's why it's exciting when somebody else comes along and you go, don't you feel the same way? And they go, yes, I do. And you go, good, I'm not crazy. It's not just me. No, it's not. The people that are truly following in the footsteps of Christ are feeling a certain way. Yeah. And other people shouldn't put that down or bash that, or,
it's going to have to pay for it if you do, because they're the one, they have to wear it,
Right.
The things that I have been through, I'm so excited to start getting busy in the church. And if I hadn't gone through, I wish I didn't have to work, because I'd rather just be here, there, and everywhere there at the church every day, all day. But I can't, obviously. But who wouldn't, right?
Right.
But there's different ministries that I'm so interested in because of things that I have endured in my life. That without that experience, I would just be kind of a layman, just talking about, like a teacher, just reading, this is what you're supposed to believe about the earth. But whatever. That's what they wrote. It's or this is what you're supposed to believe about something more profound. I don't know. But, as opposed to, or this is, what's a good analogy? This is what you're supposed to believe about baking. But if you've never baked, you've just read the instructions, the recipe, doesn't make you a baker.
Right.
Because you can read the recipe.
Right. You have to go out and do
You
it.
have to bake.
Yeah,
and
you have to bake.
You can burn a few things. You might have to even start a fire in your oven. I've had some crusty edges on that stuff, and I've had to throw things away because it didn't turn out. But now I'm pretty good.
So what are some of the ministries you're interested in?
I don't really even know specifically.
There's a lot at our church.
Yeah, but anything in recovery and people who've been victims.
I think that's what I love. I don't, I'm assuming and hoping that a lot of churches have lots of programs for people and ministries. I know ours does. And I do think, you would be a welcome person to go in because everybody can help each other with their stories and with their backgrounds and all those things. So, I think that's an exciting part of this next phase because like we said, now you got to get down to work and roll your sleeves up and really dive deep into this. And you're feeling good now, but you're just going to keep feeling good. You're just going to keep growing and you're going to keep getting closer and closer to him. It's just bound to happen. And that part's exciting too.
Yeah. My friend Lori, who you sat next to, she's just a wonderful, I think she's an angel actually, but she's always said, I have a servant soul. And I think that's probably true. So I just love being of service. And plus in my other program, my program in recovery, it's huge. It's paramount that you be of service.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to feed people or clothe people, whatever it may be. I just love getting in there. I love doing stuff like that. I love children. If I were still married, maybe I would have had more children.
Mm-hmm.
Like a whole bunch. Yeah.
Well, and you could do something, that's the thing you could do is you could end up volunteering for, something with children. And then yeah. So I think that's an exciting part is that you can try out these different ministries. And yeah, I mean, that's a great thing. So in your RCIA experience, when you were in RCIA, what do you think was the hardest part about it? If there was a hard part?
I guess remembering everything. We went through everything that you could possibly imagine about Catholic catechism. And so we had these little notebooks, and so we wrote, in all these notebooks. And so I went through like 3 notebooks. So trying to adhere to all that. My memory's not that great, short term, but long term it is. So I just keep redoing things. There's still things about the being Catholic that I can't remember, like sort of why it is certain things are the way they are. I have an emotional feeling of why they are, but I can't tell you verbatim. So I have to just keep going back and looking at it, and it will eventually adhere. But that's just part of one of my things I have to deal with. But I would say learning everything.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn.
Yeah.
And you're going to continue to learn. That was like, to me, it's like the beginning.
Right.
And it's an overview. Right. It's really well done. I think the RCIA program is really well done at our church. But I mean, I'm learning all the time. I hear things and think, oh, I've never heard that before. Or, oh, I never thought of that. And I think maybe we talked about this before, but I definitely know I've said it on the podcast. When you go through each year, you go through the first year and then the second year, your life has changed. So you'll hear the same things or the same readings, or something will be presented to you and you've seen it before, you've heard it before, you know it. But because of your current situation, you look at it in a different way. Yeah. So it's just like every year, even though I might hear the same readings or there's the same thing going on, because, Catholics, they do the same. It's very similar all the time, very consistent, which I love.
I love that too.
But that's the thing, is that you're in a different place every year and you think in different terms. And so it's just like a extra added, another facet to, being well-rounded in the Catholic faith. It's just, and then what was your favorite memory from RCIA?
Oh, Deacon Don.
He's your favorite memory.
He was
Deacon Don.
Deacon Don. And I love his wife, Diane, but Deacon Don in the beginning, so when I had driven past the church that one day, he was the person that I talked to.
Oh.
Yeah. So I was really intimidated. Like, I don't know anything about anything. I just know that I'm supposed to be here. And he's very matter of fact. And so, and I already have a thing with men. So I was like, oh, gosh, like, he's the authority. But then, and he is to me still, but the dynamic changed as we went on. And now I'm like I also think I mentioned in the last podcast, I was never the kid I would, in school, like, no, I would never. I was always me. And so he's like, probably like, oh my gosh, what, Sabrina? Anybody else? Does anybody else have a question?
Everybody was just waiting for you to ask the question. She'll eventually ask. So let's just sit here.
Oh, it was hilarious. So that whole thing changed. And so I feel really close to them and so grateful for them. And Mary, my sponsor, and all the people that I was in the class with, I just love them.
Everybody went through this major thing together.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is that when people, go through a process or something, you're in it together. You're in your own, like, you're doing it on your own, but you have this group around you. That's what I like. It's like, you don't necessarily need, like, you're going to do this because God is working with you. And you have these people around you supporting you, and that's super important and necessary. But it's also a very internal thing, and it's your decision. It's like we've said in another episode, you're not forced to stay. You're not forced to become Catholic. This isn't against your will. If you want to take some time and discern it in a different way, you're completely able to do that, contrary to what I think some people think. And it's just...
So I've never heard that. I've never.
Well, see, I get a lot of,
but
I've got
not
that
in position here.
Right.
Yes.
So I think I'm glad you don't have that experience. But the RCIA, especially Deacon Don, I think he and his team, he has a great team.
Yeah.
But he is a really good teacher, and that he's very magnetic and very knowledgeable. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I can't speak for Deacon Don, but I know that when he sees people through the RCIA or sees people through marriage prep, he is genuinely so happy and proud and like, I can't explain it, but it's just, he's thrilled that he's helping people to do these things that are so important, these sacraments. Like, he is a conduit to sacraments. And, I know he's not like saying, oh, aren't I great? And aren't I taking this all on myself? He's not doing that. He's so happy that this is like his thing, that he can be a conduit. It's like, this is my podcast. I'm trying to be a conduit. I'm not doing this for my glory. I'm a conduit. Deacon Don's a conduit. And he's just really good at it. He's got a gift for it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still kind of dumbfounded by it. As I stated in my previous podcast, I've been to other denominations. My whole life, I've visited different churches. But I've never experienced anything like this. And the way he loved and cared for your training and your learning and providing you with the information and all the things you need to have and know. And it comes from his heart, you could tell. And he's so knowledgeable. And then, I don't know, I just feel like he'd be like a big brother to me. But I was just like, he always had to put up with me.
I know. Maybe you were his little challenge.
I think I was like,
that's okay. That's okay. Keeps him on his toes.
Yeah.
That's funny.
And even in church, I can, because I sit up front, I can see the priests and Deacon Don if he's there that day or anybody. But if he noticed, like, I think it was during when I was the confirmation, it was the night before, I'm sorry. We were doing a little practice run. And the gentleman behind me who's in RCIA was kind of jovial that night. And so he was making me laugh. And I was trying I wasn't loud or boisterous, but I noticed Deacon Don, like,
That's how I felt about it. It was like, oh, boy, I don't want to. I always want to please him. And it is like an older brother. It's like,
he was just the look. He gave me the look. I was like, sorry. It's him.
That's funny. So what would you say to someone who's curious about becoming Catholic, or who you can tell, has it now that you've done this and sees a difference in you and sees that it's genuine? It's not something that's just you're going to drop in a month, If somebody were to approach you, what do you think you would tell them?
Just what I would tell them is how I just feel like I'm not alone, and I have a whole army around me now. And my image of myself and what I'm believing is so different. And my view on the world is different. And these are all graces. And I just wouldn't have had them if I'd gone in any other direction in my life. The Catholic Church is the only church appointed by Christ. Literally.
Right.
So it doesn't, I don't know why you would go somewhere else. Until I got here, though, I didn't know those things.
Right.
But now that I'm here, I'm like, well, that's just done to me.
Right.
Like, I don't understand it, but it's okay. You do you. But I'm right here, and I'm going to go with this because this is what's right and true. And it's the hardest to live by, but easiest to die.
Interesting. Yeah.
Even though I went to confession, I feel like I need to pay reparation for some things. And I think I have paid a lot by the things I've gone through. But now I voluntarily want to continue to be of service and be helpful because Father loves me and I was a runaway. And so I feel like I owe him to be the best, kindest vessel, person, woman, mother, grandmother, Nana, that I can be, and representative of Catholic Church that I can be. Again, I'm human, but I'm going to do my very best.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is that, again, we change completely when we surrender to what God wants for us. When we have the sacraments, it changes everything, and it is true and beautiful and wonderful. And, like I always say, Lord, please fill me with your love and light so that when people look at me, they see you, radiating out from me. And I'm just all about, be a bright light. But you just living your life true and genuine in the Lord, it's going to draw people one way or another, I believe. And it will soften people. If we are being Christ-like and we are being really mindful about what he would want for us and how he would want us to be acting, and we're living it every day, it is going to radiate out to other people. And you never know who you're affecting. You never know, because you've made this change and your whole being is changed now. When you're out and about in the world, you don't know who you're going to affect. It could be something really small and it could be something really big, where somebody, because you've done this, because you've put in the hard work, because you've done this lifestyle change and your life is completely different and it's just going to get better and better from here. It's going to be hard, but you're going to, as it's getting hard, you're going to feel more peace. You're going to feel more safe in your skin, in your world, and I mean in your little Sabrina world. You're going to feel better. And so that's going to radiate out to other people. And I just am such a big believer in, if we just come at things with love, if we come at things with calmness, if we ask for the Lord's guidance and help, it will help others in one way or another. And because we're willing to do that, we want to take this on, and it is meaningful to us because Christ is the one that started this church. And that means something. It certainly means something to me. Sounds like it means something to you.
Absolutely.
I don't want to go to Fred's church.
No.
Nothing wrong with you, Fred, but
No.
I don't want to go to Fred's church.
I don't want to see Fred is going to have Fred's belief.
Right.
And then Bob is going to say, well, I think it's that, but we should do it this way. And then John is going to change.
Right.
It needs to be coming from the principal.
Right. And that's why people struggle with the Catholic Church, is because they want the Catholic Church to keep up with the times and do this and that because, oh, you're behind the times. And why are you doing that? We're doing it because there was a set of rules laid down. And I personally don't want them to change the rules. I don't want to do that. I'm happy with the way they are. If you don't like the rules, go to a different church. Go find God where you want to find God. Leave this religion alone so that the people that want to feel safe and secure, that want to have the sacraments, that want to follow what Christ laid down for us, let us do that.
Well, we're going to continue. I think we're always going to be under the people's perception. And what I have found is, like, people around where I live, they don't even know anything about it.
Right.
But somebody must have said something way back, and that's their whole perception.
Right. People who don't want to support the Catholic Church, let's say it that way, who don't understand it, they, like you say, they have something in their head where they don't want to go along with it. And it's like, you don't even know what you're talking about. And when you try to explain it to them, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear what you have to say. They've already made up their mind. But in general, people, if you start to explain your love and your feelings, they'll cut you off. They don't want you to answer.
Well, it's like I said, we're dealing with things that are hard and arduous. We're taking that path.
Right.
Right? We can't just sit and say, yeah, I believe in God.
Yeah.
And that's it. I'll see you next Sunday.
Right.
We have to.
It's all day, every day.
You and just like my program, my 12-step program, you are living this. It's not talking out of the side of your mouth.
Right.
Actually living it. And I have some things going on because of this.
Right.
And people don't like to see you get well.
I almost think it's like a jealousy thing. Like, oh, she was strong enough to do this. I'm not. They're thinking this in their head. I'm not strong enough to do it. So instead of like being happy for her, I'm gonna like make her feel bad so that I don't have to get better. I don't know.
In this case, I think it's just 100% jealousy because this person is so wretchedly unhappy, right? And just grossly angry and blah. And when they see somebody in the sunlight of the Spirit going to church and going to the meetings and doing those things, it's like a demon.
Yeah, they mock it.
I mean, they can't. And I think something was said about, somebody once said something about, I had a picture of Mother Mary. Why do you have pictures if you don't, if you're not worshiping? And I said, well, do you have a picture of your mom? Even though she's passed? Or anybody? Yeah. Same thing.
But they don't want to hear that. That makes perfect sense, but they don't want to hear that.
You can't.
Right. And that's okay, because again, if we're consistent, because what we're doing isn't an act, what we're doing isn't a fake out. We're not trying to fake people out. We're not trying to con anybody. We're not being conned. We're not being, we're not in a cult. So, well, that's what people think. So we're not. So instead of, trying to convince them, because we're never going to convince them. We just need to live the life so they can see it. And then they can either believe it or not believe it. But we need to know that we're anchored to the Lord in a good way, in a beautiful, safe, secure way. He's our foundation. He's pure love. And just radiate the light that's coming out from you. And people eventually, hopefully, God willing, will start also gravitating to him, because their lives would change. And that's what I pray for every day, is like, please, Lord, you're the Prince of Peace. Please help these people, soften them, please, because I'm worried for them. I'm happy for you, but I'm worried for them. I'm so happy that you came back. Your episode, number 57, again, if you haven't listened, your episode got a lot of listens. And I think you helped a lot of people, because you were so open and honest about things you've gone through that I think are very relatable to people. And I think you gave people hope. And it was a very popular episode. And so I appreciate that. So of course I wanted to have you back, because it's like, look what happened. This, she did it,
You can really come back from a place where you absolutely, I just lost somebody recently who was in that same dark, horrible place, and they just couldn't make it. They're gone.
Yeah.
And it could have easily been me too.
Right. But you heard that voice.
There was
always you followed the voice,
because there was always a little bit of hope in my mind, in my heart.
And God knew that. Yeah. So he really knew exactly when he was going to guide you. Yeah. And it worked. And it's just going to get better. Buckle up though, but it's going to get better.
I can do it.
I know. I believe in you. I believe in you. I love you. I'm so happy you came. I appreciate you. I'm going to continue to pray for you and support you and help you in any way I can. And I just know your life has already taken a turn for the better. And isn't that amazing?
Yes.
God is good.
Yes.
All the time.
Yes. Amen.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Love you. Bye.
Thank you for joining me today. Now go out and be a bright light in someone's life. And remember, be focused, be faithful, and be fresh.
Fresh Catholic is produced, edited, and recorded in Ventura, California.